Hello students, welcome to all of you Shiksha 360, and today basically we will discuss paper number 3 that is legal, chapter number 2 part 1. Clear? So let's start our today discussion. Very important all these topics, and our today's topic name is control over organization of banks. Clear? Control over organization of banks. In this session basically we have to discuss basically under which section basically licenses to be provided by the RBI, licenses to be cancelled basically under which section. Clear? All the things basically we have to discuss in this section one by one. So let's start our discussion. So the Banking Regulation Act basically provides for regulation of the organization of the banking companies. Clear? Basically what Banking Regulation Act provides? Basically provides for the regulation of the organization of the banking companies. There are further regulations. Clear? Basically there are also further regulations over the paid up capital and reserves. Clear? Basically there are also further regulations basically over the paid up capitals and reserves, shareholders' rights, constitution of the board of directors, appointment of the chairman, and formation of the subsidiaries. Clear? Along with that, basically for the regulation of the organization of banking companies, along with that, basically there are further regulations basically along over that, basically over the paid up capital and reserves, shareholder rights, constitution of the board of directors, appointment of chairman, and formation of subsidiaries. Clear? All these things basically we have to understand in this session. There are also controls over the managerial and other personnel. Clear? There are also control over the managerial and other personnel, including the power to remove unsuitable persons. We can say that like directors or chairman. Clear? Like directors or chairman, and to appoint the suitable persons. Clear? Basically to remove the unsuitable persons and to appoint the suitable persons. Clear? And to appoint the suitable persons. Clear? So let's start discussion one by one all these terms. First one is licensing of the banking companies. Clear? First point which we have to discuss here, that is a licensing of the banking companies. Clear? License required from RBI. Clear? Basically from where basically they will get the license? Basically that is from the RBI. Clear? License requirement from the RBI. Clear? To carry on the banking business in India. Clear? Basically to carry on the banking business in India, a company requires a license from the Reserve Bank. Clear? To carry on the banking business in India, basically a company requires a license from the Reserve Bank under section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act 1949. Clear? To carry on the banking business in India, a company requires a license under section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act 1949. When the act came into force, the banking companies, clear? Basically when this act came into force, that is basically in the starting. Clear? Basically from which basically they will get license basically under section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? Reserve Bank basically gives a license. So when the act came into existence, the banking companies, clear? Basically at that time, basically when the act was formed, there are also banking companies existing. So what will happen to that companies? Clear? Basically what will happen to that companies? Clear? So when this act basically came into force, the banking companies which were then in existence were required to apply for the license. Clear? Basically which were then in existence basically were required to apply for the license within 6 months. Clear? Basically within 6 months from the commencement of that. Clear? Like basically from the start of that. Clear? Basically from the starting of that, that is Banking Regulation Act, basically they have to apply. Clear? Basically all existing banking companies basically they have to apply basically within how many time? Clear? Basically within 6 months. You have to remember these types of things. Clear? Basically within how much time? Basically within 6 months from the commencement of that. But such banking companies basically were permitted to continue business unless and until their applications for license were rejected by the Reserve Bank. Clear? Were rejected by the Reserve Bank. Like we can say that basically just for the understanding purpose, like we can say that basically act basically started from 1st of July 1952, just for the example purpose. And any company basically apply basically we can say that on 23rd August for the license till 24th July, we can say that till 31st March 1951, the bank not get license basically from the RBI. So basically they will stop their services or not. They will not stop their services basically, they will not stop performing their services Okay, they will not perform their services. Clear, stop of the banking companies till the license is to be rejected by the Reserve Bank. Clear, till the license is to be rejected by the Reserve Bank. Clear. So all these things basically you have to remember. Clear, all these things basically you have to remember. Okay, that is license basically under which section? Under section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. And all the existing banking companies, clear, basically at that time basically they have to apply for the license basically within 6 months from the commencement of the act. Clear, basically from the commencement of the act. Clear. Now what is the discretion of the Reserve Bank? Clear. Now next point basically, what is the discretion of the Reserve Bank? Reserve Bank has the discretion basically to grant or refuse. Clear, basically it depends upon the Reserve Bank basically by checking all the points whether to give the license to that banking company or not. Clear. Discretion to grant or refuse the license. And when such a decision basically based on a relevant material and germane consideration, the decision cannot be assailed. Clear, the decision cannot be assailed. Clear. So it is open to the RBI to consider the defects or improvements basically revealed in an inspection basically held under section 35 of the banking regulation while disposing of an application for license. Clear. So next point which we have to remember, that basically license given under which section? Section 22 of Banking Regulation Act. And for inspection, for giving the license, inspection it is to be done basically under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear, under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act, inspection is to be done. Clear. So it is open to the RBI basically to consider the defects or improvements revealed in an inspection held under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act while disposing of an application for the license. Clear, basically while disposing of an application basically for the license. Clear. The refusal of license to a banking company basically would make it ineligible to undertake the banking business, but it would still open to the company to carry on other business like money lending. Clear, like money lending. Clear, money lending it is a different thing. Clear, money lending it is a different thing. Like basically you have plenty of money in your hands, basically like you can say that you are a landlord. Clear, and you are basically, we can say that basically you are money lenders in your villages. Clear, this is a different thing. But banking it is a different thing. Clear, banking basically taking money from the public and lending to the public. Clear, lending to the public. Clear. So it is a difference between both these things. Clear, it is a difference between both these things. Even the license is to be rejected. Clear, license is to be rejected. Even the license is to be rejected, they can carry on their business like a money lending, but they will not doing all the banking business. Clear, basically what they will not doing all the business banking business. Clear. So here up to this much point basically we are able to understand 2 points. First one is the license is to be provided under section 22 and they have to apply basically within 6 months. Second point here basically which we have to understand, that is basically for providing license. Clear, basically they will do the inspection. Clear, and inspection is done basically under section 35. Clear, inspection is to be done basically under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear, inspection is to be done basically under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act. Okay, now move to the next point. What are the conditions? Clear, basically license is to be provided basically under section 35. Sorry, under section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. So basically there are some conditions for giving the license. It is not like that basically anyone basically wants to open any bank, they will give application to the RBI basically for providing the license. Clear. So basically what are the conditions regarding that? First one is the minimum capital and reserves. So what are the conditions to be satisfied? Basically section 11 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear, section 11 of the Banking Regulation Act basically specifies the minimum capital and reserve requirements of a banking company. Clear, section 11 of the Banking Regulation Act basically specifies the minimum capital. They will specify what is the minimum capital, like 100 crore, 200 crore, 500 crore. Clear, depend upon the case. And reserve requirement basically of a banking company. Clear, specifies the minimum capital and reserves requirement of a banking company. The Reserve Bank can stipulate a higher requirement of capital basically for licensing of banking company as under section 22. As under section 22, the Reserve Bank basically has to be satisfied that the company has an adequate capital structure and the earning prospects. Clear, and the earning prospects. Clear. So these all conditions. Just here, what is the important point to remember, that basically minimum capital and reserve requirements basically of the banking company, for the banking company basically under which section? That is under section 11 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear. So license is to be provided Just you can remember these things like how I am revising in every slide. Section 22 of Banking Regulation Act. Please remember that also. Sometimes basically you will find here RBI regulation, RBI Act also. Clear? So please remember these things. Clear? So please remember these things. Next one here is inspection. Section 35. Minimum capital and reserves. Section 22. Sorry, section 11. Okay, so up to this much point, basically we have to remember these three things. And license they have to apply basically within 6 months. Now move to the next one. What are the conditions basically for the foreign banks? What are the conditions basically for the foreign banks? Clear? So in the case of companies incorporated outside India, that is basically establishment basically outside India, applying for a license, additional conditions. Clear? There are some additional conditions have been stipulated basically for consideration by the Reserve Bank. So what are these additional conditions? First one is whether carrying on a banking business by the company. Clear? Basically whether carrying on a banking business by the company in India will be in the public interest. First one is basically whether carrying on banking business by the company in India basically will be in the public interest. Second one is whether the government or the law of the country, clear, basically whether the government or the law of the country in which the company is incorporated discriminates in any way against banking companies registered in India. Clear, they will check that basically whether the government or the law of the country, clear, in which the company is incorporated, like basically any company, foreign bank, like of any USA bank, clear, basically wants to do business in India, clear, in which the company is incorporated, clear, discriminates in any way against banking companies, clear, that's registered in India, clear, they will check also. That is basically if Indian company basically wants to do business in that country. So whether that country basically will do any discriminate basically with the Indian bank or not, clear, basically with the Indian banks or not, clear, they have to check all these conditions also. Third one here is whether the companies complies with the provision of the Banking Regulation Act as applicable to the foreign banks, clear, as applicable to the foreign companies, clear. So whether the company basically complies with the provision of the Banking Regulation Act as applicable to the foreign companies, clear, as applicable to the foreign companies, clear. So these are some of the basic conditions which they have to satisfy. Now next one, license is to be provided, clear. So under which cases basically cancellation of the license, clear. You will see that basically from the last few years, clear, last 3 to 4 years, you will see the news basically regarding the cancellation of the license of the many of the banks, clear, of many of the banks, clear. So what are the reason behind that, clear? So what is the reason behind that regarding the cancellation of the license, clear, regarding the cancellation of the license? So let's discuss. Basically under section 22, clear, basically license is to be granted, clear. Basically there is a one specific section, clear, under the section 22 basically for which the cancellation of the license, clear. So subsection 4 of section 22, clear, subsection 4 of section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act basically authorizes the Reserve Bank, clear, basically subsection 4 of section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act authorizes the Reserve Bank to cancel the license basically granted to any banking company, clear, under which section basically they will get power. Subsection 4 of the section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act basically authorizes the Reserve Bank to cancel the license basically granted to any banking company. So what are the reasons for the cancellation of the license? Clear, the cancellation of the license may be on any one or more of the following grounds. Clear, the cancellation of license basically may be on any one or more of the following grounds. Clear, so what are the reasons? Let's discuss one by one. First one is the company ceases or that is stops to carry on banking business in India. Clear, first point here, that is the company ceases or stops carry on banking business in India. Clear, first one is the company ceases or stops to carry on banking business in India. First, second point here, that is the company at any time, clear, the company at any time fails to comply with any of the conditions. Clear, the company at any time fails to comply with any of the conditions basically imposed under the subsection 1 of section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? Second point is the company at any time basically fails to comply with any of the conditions. Clear? Comply with any of the conditions imposed under the subsection 1. Clear? Imposed under the subsection 1 of section 22. Clear? Imposed under the subsection 1 of section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? Of Banking Regulation Act. Like one is like we have already discussed, like under section 11, that is minimum capital. Clear? This is one of the condition also. Third one is the company does not fulfill at any time any of the conditions basically referred to subsection 3 or 3A of the section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? Subsection 3 or 3A of the section 22 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? Of the Banking Regulation Act. Just you have to remember that basically under that cancellation of the license basically it is done under the subsection 4. Clear? It is done basically under the subsection 4 of section 22. Clear? For like granting license basically there is also section 22. Clear? For the cancellation of the license also basically there is section 22, but there is subsection. Clear? Further there is one section, that is subsection 4 of the section 22, that is basically required for the cancellation of the license. Clear? Basically for the cancellation of the license. Now move to the next one, branch licensing. Clear? Like we have to license, we give a license to the bank. Now bank will establish their branches. So for the branches, basically they will also get license from the RBI. Clear? Basically for the branches, basically they will also get the license from the RBI. Clear? So how they will get license basically from the RBI basically for establishing the specific branches. Clear? So banks have to obtain. Clear? Basically banks have to obtain basically prior permission of the Reserve Bank. Clear? Basically banks have to obtain basically the prior permission of the Reserve Bank for opening a new place of business. Clear? Basically for what? Basically for opening a new place of business or changing location of the existing place of business. Clear? Basically for what? Either basically for opening a new place of business or changing location of the existing place of business. Clear? Or changing location basically for the existing place of business. Clear? So under section 23 of the Banking Regulation Act, clear? Under section 23 basically of the Banking Regulation Act, what is the meaning of the place of business? Clear? Basically here they are mentioning for opening a new place of business. Clear? Or changing location. What is the meaning of that? So under section 23 of the Banking Regulation Act, basically place of business, basically for this purpose, indicates any sub-office, pay office, sub-pay office, or any place at which the deposits are received, the checks cashed, or money lends. Clear? So basically what is the place of business? Basically it can be any sub-office, pay office, sub-pay office, or any place at which the deposits are to be received, checks are to be encashed, or money are to be lent. Clear? Deposits are received, checks are cashed, or money are lent. Clear? Or money are lent. Clear? So under that, basically under which section basically they will get license? Basically under section 23 of the Banking Regulation. So the present guidelines, clear? Basically further basically for the establishment of the ATM. Clear? Basically or how many ATM basically they will establish in this year. Basically for that also they will get license from the RBI. Clear? Basically they will get license from the RBI. Clear? Like basically we are thinking basically bank has to establish your ATM basically at this place. Clear? Or at any other place. Clear? Because there are less ATM. So basically for all these things, basically according to us, basically it is very easy for the bank. Clear? But for the bank, basically it is very difficult because for all these things, basically they have also to get license basically from the Reserve Bank of India. Clear? Basically they have to get license basically from the Reserve Bank of India basically for all these things also. Now let's discuss. So the present guidelines basically from the RBI provide that the bank should submit their request. Clear? That the banks should submit their request basically for the new branches, administrative offices, ATMs once in a year for consideration of RBI as against the earlier practice of making individual application for each and every branch. Clear? Now basically at every year, basically in the starting of the year, basically bank has to give application basically for the RBI regarding all these things. Clear? Basically for the opening of the new branches or administrative offices or ATMs. Clear? Basically once in a year. Clear? To the RBI for the permission. Clear? Earlier basically they have to give the application for each of the branches separately. Now basically they have to provide one application basically at the starting of the year, cumulative application. Clear? For all these things. So basically when approved the permission, like basically bank will take basically for the approval of basically 52 ATMs. Clear? Basically once in a year. So basically this permission basically will be valid only for 1 year. Only for 1 year. Clear? If in that specific year that much ATMs are established, well and good. Clear? Otherwise basically only we can say that only 35 ATMs basically they are able to establish. Clear? For the next year, basically they have to take approval. Clear? Again, clear? For the next year, basically they have to take approval. Clear? So basically when approved, the permission basically would be valid for a period of 1 year. Clear? Before which the branches or offices basically should be operationalized. Clear? Before which the branches or offices basically should be operationalized. Clear? Basically after the end of the period. Clear? The validity is to be removed. Clear? The validity basically we can say that extinguished. Clear? So this is to be valid basically only for 1 year. Clear? Basically this is to be valid only for 1 year. Okay. So basically for granting the permission, clear? Basically for granting the permission, basically under section 23, what the Reserve Bank may require, clear? The granting the Reserve Bank basically may require to satisfy of the following condition. First one is financial condition and the history of the bank. Second one here basically the general characteristics of its management. Third one here basically that is adequacy of the capital structure and earning prospects, public interest, and all these things. Clear? Basically this is to be required under the section 23, and all these things basically it is to be checked under which section, that is inspected or inspection. Basically it is under which section, that is under section 35. Clear? Under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? So this may be done by an inspection of the bank under section 35. Clear? Under section 35 of the Banking Regulation Act. Clear? So all the things basically we have to remember. Clear? All these things basically we have to remember for understanding all these prospects. Clear? So for granting the permission under section 23 of the Reserve Bank of the Banking Regulation Act, the Reserve Bank basically may require to be satisfied of the following. First one is financial condition and history of the bank, general characteristics of its management, adequacy of the capital structure and earning prospects, public interest. Clear? And all the things basically done by the inspection of the bank under section 35. Clear? They will check all these things. And further, basically, this is basically for the banks and specifically for the regional rural banks. Clear? For the RRBs, that is, they are established basically under the RRB Act 1976. First RRB basically it is established in the year 1975. Clear? The act was basically to be enacted later, next year. So in the case of regional rural banks, that is RRBs, the applications basically for permission have to be routed through the NABARD, that is NABARD, National Bank NABARD, and the National Bank has to offer its comments on merits to the Reserve Bank. Clear? Basically for establish the regional rural banks. Clear? For all these things, basically the application it is to be routed through the NABARD. Clear? National Bank for Agriculture and Rural Development. Clear? National Bank basically for the agriculture and rural development. Clear? For all the things basically application is to be routed through the NABARD to the RBI. Clear? For the establishment of the regional rural banks. Clear? For the establishment of the regional rural banks. Clear? So all the things basically you have to remember. And in this session, basically we have to discuss up to this much point, because in the next session, basically I will discuss with you what is paid up capital and what are reserves. And for the foreign banks, what is the capital requirement for the Indian banks, and what is paid up capital, what is subscribed capital, what is authorized capital. Very, very important for the examination point of view or for the general view. What is authorized capital? What is subscribed capital? What is issued capital? What is oversubscription? What is under subscription? Clear? Called up capital, paid up capital. Clear? All these things basically we have to discuss in the next session. Okay? It will take 25 to 30 minutes. Basically, we have to discuss in detail all these things with the proper examples. Clear? What is the difference between basically all these capitals and how these capitals are important for a banking organization. Clear? So thanks to all of you for attending this session. Hope all of you are able to understand all these points properly. Clear? And you will get questions basically from these points directly in the examination. Clear? Just go through this video at least 2 times. Slides will be provided in your LRB group. Clear? Legal group. So thanks to all of you for joining this session.